All right, so like I said, living in your own home is still probably one of the more common arrangements, and a lot of people who live in their own home live alone. Sometimes this is because they are widows, they have suffered from widowhood. Widowhood is the most stressful life event that a lot of people can go through. It's rated as, one of the highest, most stressful things that can happen. More women are likely to become widows than men. As we've already talked about multiple times, women have kind of a longer lifespan, and so it's more typical for the husband to pass away before the wife does, and so she may live a period of time as a widow. Women are also less likely to remarry after they have become a widow, and so they may be a widow for a longer period of time compared to a man. About 34% of women over the age of 65 are widows. The number is only about 12% for men, so there's a really drastic difference there. Most do prefer to continue to live alone. Some people may move closer to their family, to their adult children, but they likely will not move in with them unless they, just cannot afford to live on their own, which may be the case, especially if a woman was financially dependent on her husband and then he passes away, then she may basically be required to move in with someone else because she cannot afford it. Some of the greatest problem that they face is profound loneliness, probably not surprising. Because they're living on their own, then it's very difficult for them to get the social interaction that they need. Men tend to have more issues with widowhood than women do for a number of reasons. First of all, I talked kind of last time about how women are more likely to take on that kin-keeper role, where they're the ones who are staying in communication with their adult children and their relatives, gathering people for holidays and activities. And so if the wife passes away and she was the one that had that role, then the widowed husband may not have the skills that he needs to reach out to the family and get that sort of social structure. And so a man is more likely to experience that really profound loneliness, whereas a woman may have other social support networks that can kind of help compensate for that. Most men also tend to, at least historically, have relied on women for doing things like household chores, cooking and cleaning, and then those social aspects. And so they lose kind of that, just the logistical things that their wives were doing for them, and have to take on all these new roles that they may not be familiar with. Also, wives are more likely to encourage their husbands to have healthy habits and behaviors. And so if their wives pass away, then they may start to engage in more unhealthy diets, less exercise, less activity, and so they end up having more physical and mental health problems. And then in addition to all of that, men are also less likely to reach out and express some of the grief that they may be suffering from, and they may sort of internalize more of that more. And so for all of those reasons, they may be more likely than women to remarry because they really are lacking in some of the support systems that they got from their wives before their wife passed away. Some things that can help foster adaptation to widowhood. There are things that the widow themselves can do, so particularly mastering new skills of daily living. Again, that sort of goes along with taking on the responsibilities of the spouse who passed away. Also, just mastering new skills can help sort of take up some of the time so that you're not just ruminating on grief and negative thoughts. And then, of course, family and friends can provide an outlet of social support and interaction. Many families may provide social support in the first year or so after the spouse has passed away to kind of help relieve the grief, but then they may sort of taper off after that, leaving the widow in a state of that sort of profound loneliness. And so it's important that that social support continues even after the sort of grieving period has ended. There are also community supports, so senior centers are places that widows and all seniors can go to get that social interaction. There are specific support groups that are just for widows that can help, again, with the social aspect, but also as a space to find other people who can relate to some of the issues. It's also been shown that engaging in religious activities and also volunteer activities can help relieve some of the profound loneliness that can come along with this stage of life. And volunteer activities in particular have been shown to be one of the best ways to find meaningful roles that a person can take on to help with this grieving period. Leisure and volunteer activities are not just important for those who are suffering from widowhood, it's really important for anyone in this stage sort of after retirement. Talked about this a little bit before, this idea that once you hit retirement you gain about 50 extra hours a week of free time, and so it's important to really fill that time with meaningful, joyful activities. Typically, people will continue to do things that they had interest in early in life. A lot of people who retire go through what's called a honeymoon period during their retirement, where they may experiment with a bunch of new activities that they've never tried before. But typically, most people will kind of settle into the same hobbies and interests that they've had throughout their entire life. So, maybe they were into gardening, but then their job took over so much of their time, they couldn't really do it anymore. They may go back to some of those hobbies that they abandoned in favor of their career. Involvement is linked to better health and reduced mortality, so longer lifespan. Most elderly people tend to select activities that allow for all of these, something that allows for self-expression, creativity, something that allows them to gain new achievements. Particularly helping others through volunteer activities can be really profound and meaningful. Something that allows for social interaction, and also having those hobbies and activities can help structure daily life so that people are staying on a set routine, they're not settling into like a sedentary lifestyle. Mobility, of course, influences frequency of these activities. So as people start to get, motor impairments and other impairments, then the amount of time they spend in volunteer and leisure activities declines.